The following is a production of Different Brains. Visit us at differentbrains.org.
The following Different Brains content was funded in part by the Community Foundation of Broward and support from people like you.
In this episode of Exploring Different Brains,
it just changed everything. Like, I give super kudos to teenagers or young adults that get a diagnosis of epilepsy, because they've lived their life from 1 to 19 one way, and then you immediately have to change everything because you can't drive now. When you go swimming or to the beach or something, you might want to have somebody with you. So it just changes everything.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Exploring Different Brains. I'm Dr. Hackey Reitman, and today we're welcoming the team members from Epilepsy Alliance, Florida, Anna Diaz and Luis Martinez. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Let's introduce yourself, and we're going to go ladies first.
Geez, pressure. No. My name's Anna Diaz. For Epilepsy Alliance, I work in the social services department as their aide / assistant. And I've had epilepsy since I was 6. My seizures aren't controlled, so I absolutely love doing this work and meeting other people with epilepsy.
Well, I'm Luis Martinez. I'm a part of the prevention and education department. My job consists on educating the community, training the community all the way from like school personnel and different people, from police department and anyone who wants to learn on what to do if a seizure happens at their workplace or at their house or, any place. And I do those free trainings. I also go ahead and do a lot of health fair events, and I'm what you call a community resource specialist, specifically here in Broward County. But we do have a whole entire group of Miami-Dade County and different counties here, South Florida and Central Florida and up Northern Florida. So it's just an amazing opportunity. I love what I do. It's a passion, and you get to meet a lot of great people like Anna, that are have gone through, all these things because of epilepsy and seizures, and it just it's an amazing, touching, job. It's like a dream job in a way. So very grateful for it.
Well, let's talk about the prevalence of epilepsy here in Florida.
Well, a lot of people don't know that it's something that is becoming more and more known. A lot of people are getting educated on what seizures are, what epilepsy is. There's always been a stigma. For example, a lot of people think that has to do with just a mental issue or your mental health. Well, it does affect your mental health, but it's neurological. It has to do with the brain. It has to do with something going on in your brain that needs help, right? That needs correction. So we try to educate, especially here Floridians. We all know that we're a little stubborn, right? On what it is, to deal with someone with epilepsy, because as we know, it's just not the person that is epileptic. It's also their family members, it's their friends, it's their workplace. It affects everyone around. So one thing that we tell people is that it affects, again, not just the person that is epileptic, but it's everyone. So we want to go ahead and educate, help them know where to get help, help them have more or less a normal life. And I don't know if you want to go ahead and jump in a little bit of some of your experiences.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to add on is that I feel people don't really realize how common seizures can be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, epilepsy is very common as well. 1 in 26 people are gonna develop epilepsy at some time in their life. And if you put that into perspective, it's crazy, like how many people that actually is. And 1 in 10, only 10 people, 1 in 10 are going to have a seizure sometime in their life. It may not be epilepsy, but they're going to have a seizure. And like Luis said, it's really important to know what to do and what not to do. Because seizure first aid is a lot more of what not to do because of myths that go back before either of us were even a thought. So
And I want to point out that just in Florida, not nationwide or just in Florida, over 500,000 of people are impacted by epilepsy. So
500,000 in Florida alone.
only in Florida, yes. And that's just a record number that, a lot of times keeps growing throughout, every 6 months, there's more and more people, because that's another situation we wanted to point out is that some people that are epileptic are a little embarrassed or shy, right, to say that they have it. And they feel they're going to get judged. They might not get the job that they want. Just many different reasons. We just want to tell them, look, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. We're here for you. It's okay. So that's just people that we know of that have come up to us that have gone through a medical procedures. But I'm pretty sure there has to be way more than that.
Absolutely.
Wow. What are the main triggers and challenges when it comes to epilepsy?
Aide, you're the MVP when it comes to this.
Triggers and challenges. Wow. So I would say I'll start with triggers. Triggers for individuals with epilepsy, it's so everybody with epilepsy, it's so individualized. So like my biggest trigger is heat, and I live in South Florida for some reason, but it's heat. So if I'm outside in heat for a long time, I'm more prone to have a seizure. So I know that's something to stay away from. But somebody else, it could be stress. That's a huge one as well. Emotional stress, getting sick, women's time of the month, they're prone to have more seizures. So for everybody, it's very different. And challenges, there's a lot of them, and it depends on how severe the person's condition is, whether they can attend, a quote unquote normal school without having seizures. Like I had to be put out of school and switched to homeschool because I was just having too many seizures during the day. So, but that's just me, so that's one challenge I went through. Another big challenge I would say is everybody I come across that has epilepsy deals with a lot of memory struggles, whether it's short-term memory or not remembering what time it is or whatever. It's usually short-term memory. It could be long-term as well, or just little blank spots that you can't really fill in portions of your life. So that's a big one as well.
Can you talk about the overlap between epilepsy and other neurodiversity issues such as autism, ADHD, others?
Well, one of the things we want to point out is that there's different type of seizures. So a lot of people, when they think about a seizure, they just think about someone collapsing to the floor and convulsing. But that's just something that, TV has always taught us, right? But there's actually different types of seizures. And I'm so happy you mentioned ADHD because some of the seizures that we've seen could be very relatable to that, right? Where someone just blanks out, they space out for just a few minutes, and then they come back. And that could happen more than once throughout the day, especially among kids. It could happen to anyone. So another situation is that we don't have a cure yet for epilepsy. We do have different resources, medications, surgeries, even some type of diets that could help prevent the seizures. But it's just one of those that we still don't have a cure. I know a client of ours, for example, that he was a seizure-free for 15 years, right? And again, the seizures started happening again this year. So after 15 years, he was okay. It seemed like he was cured, but at the end of the day, he came back, and for no reason, no one knows. But now he's getting the treatment, medications have changed. So it's one of the things we want to point out to people that epilepsy is something that, it targets anyone. It could happen to you, me, and the reason being because of brain injuries. One of the things that we're an advocate of is helmet fitting. We do a lot of the bike helmet fitting, and we all know, especially children, they don't like wearing helmets. We see it all the time, even with motorcyclists, they don't like wearing helmets, but we're a huge advocate on that because it could just happen to anyone. Just because of a brain injury, you could start having seizures and become epileptic. So it's just unlike different situations with different neurological disorders, this one could target you at any time. It's something that there's no cureness. It's something that could be a challenge, again, for that for the person that is going through it and everyone around. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting overlaps, Anna, tell us about your pro wrestling career and how you've used that to help the community.
Oof, that's a couple years ago. So
I
yes,
didn't want you to get too comfortable.
A couple years ago, I did actually wrestle professionally for an extended amount of time, doing sports entertainment. And one of the ways that I brought my condition and Epilepsy Alliance Florida into that kind of world is that I would put on wrestling shows that people would attend. And Epilepsy Alliance Florida actually had a table there with information, and we raised a lot of funds, and all the funds went to Epilepsy Alliance Florida. I mean, for me, that's the number one cause.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful.
You're so cool.
Were you a good guy or a bad guy?
It depended on the day. It depends on the day.
Wow, that's awesome.
How could South Florida better support people with seizure disorders and epilepsy?
One of the things we recommend is asking for trainings. They're free, easy to do. They could do them online. They could do it through Teams or Zooms. Or I personally, or one of our community resource specialists, we could go to your work facility, whether it's a school, a department, wherever it is, and we'll do those free trainings. So getting to know the basics, at least I could say, on what to do if a seizure happens. Anything helps. Donating, of course, volunteering for our events. We just had our about three of our walks, right? Yeah, Miami, Broward, and West Palm, and they were amazing. And our walk the talk events were just super awesome. I was there DJing, and it was just a great experience. So supporting our events, our walks. We have another one coming this weekend, I believe, in Jacksonville. We're spread out throughout Florida. So if they could volunteer, donate, sponsors, connections, and more importantly, like letting the community know about us. We want to help out. And once again, it's nothing to be alone for. You don't have to be alone to do this. We want to be there for you, being part of our community, supporting us, spreading just the awareness.
So Anna, how did you first receive your diagnosis of epilepsy?
So I was in, I want to say kindergarten or first grade, one of the two. We went on a field trip and I just collapsed. The school called my mom and was like, "Hi, we're calling because your daughter had a seizure," and she's like, "No, she didn't," because from all that time she thinks I'm like completely normal, so she doesn't expect something like that. I was fine, and then we went to the doctor, and really the best test to take to know if you have epilepsy or if it was just like a one-time seizure is an EEG, which is basically they put leads on all around your head, and they look at the electrical activity in your brain. And if you have abnormal electrical activity, that's when you know that you're having seizures, and if it's multiple, you have epilepsy. So I think it just changed everything. Like, I give super kudos to teenagers or young adults that get a diagnosis of epilepsy, because they've lived their life from 1 to 19 one way, and then you immediately have to change everything because you can't drive now. When you go swimming or to the beach or something, you might want to have somebody with you. So it just changes everything. And I know for sure that my mom knows way more about epilepsy than she ever wanted to know because of the situation. But she advocates, and my family advocates for it too now. And we just hope for it to be more. We hope to hear more about epilepsy in the future, for sure.
When a child first has epilepsy, and I know you're not medical doctors or neurologists or seizure disorder specialists, but what might the standard workup include or not include? Is it first seizure, they don't check out very much, and then if there's subsequent ones, or are there any general rules of thumb?
I would think that first, you basically get every scan, but I would think the first seizure, they would do a CAT scan. They would do, if it was multiple seizures, I believe they would do an MRI and probably diagnose you with epilepsy because, like we said earlier, like some people can have a seizure but not have epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's multiple seizures with no, like nothing provoking it, you have epilepsy. So I would think that it would be a CAT scan, an MRI, and then the EEG to confirm it.
And they will be on seizure watch. After that first seizures, it's always going to be a seizure watch. I myself, I remember when I got into a car accident and a car flipped over. I didn't have a seizure, but I was on seizure watch for almost like 2 or 3 months. The doctor was just very concerned because, again, two seizures or more, automatically they'll consider you epileptic. And then they got to do the different type of testings on what will work for you to control or try, right, to control those seizures. So it is a lot of back and forth. Again, one of the things we want to bring awareness is protecting this, right here, your head. Is just very important, especially for children. I mean, for anyone, because again, it could happen to us, to anyone, but with children, please, helmets, keep that head safe. I remember there was a situation from a family member of mine that they had hit their head, thought it was normal, and they started, having a seizure like 2-3 hours later, and they had gone on their day and they started having a seizure, they started having a seizure after, and eventually, throughout the weeks, they noticed that, they became epileptic, something that you would not think could cause, so, yeah.
And some of the time, well, most of the time, 70% of the time, you're not going to know why that's the diagnosis, why you ended up with epilepsy. Because sometimes it could be a genetic change or it could be hereditary, but most of the time, you're not going to know.
But we do want to say it's not contagious.
It's not contagious.
It's not contagious. That's one of the things we want to point out. It's not like, it's not contagious. It could happen to any of us, right? But it is not contagious. So she can give it to me, I can give it. That's not how it works. We just, for some reason, there's a group over there, the Floridians, that think that it's not contagious. And like she mentioned before, it's not, not that I'm saying that it's not spiritual, but it's something that, again, has to do with neurology. It has to do with the brain and our health.
How can people learn more about the Epilepsy Alliance of Florida?
Visiting our website, epilepsyalliance.fl.org. There we have everything from all our classes, trainings, to our future events, how to volunteers, and just updates, and getting to know our newsletters and receiving those newsletters will be such a great help. So please visit our website and you could email us through there and get in contact with us.
Tell us about the biggest misconceptions. You're up.
I love talking about it because there's so many. But the biggest one in my eyes is that when somebody is having a seizure, that you're supposed to put something in their mouth.
Oh no.
So you're not. Your tongue is a muscle, and if you were wanting to do the seizure first aid, that's something we cover all the time in that. I've heard horror stories of people putting credit cards, spoons, wallets, shoes in people's mouths while they're having a seizure. And again, your tongue is a muscle. You're not going to swallow it. People think that you're going to swallow your tongue. It's very strong. And then another thing that I've heard from other people is, they can bite their tongue. But how many people here in this room have bitten their tongue without having a seizure? All of us, I'm sure at one point. That's the biggest myth about, I would say is the biggest myth. And another one is a little older is people still feel that when individuals are having seizures, that there's a demon possessing their body. So they don't want to do anything or help the individual because it's is a demon, supposedly. But they're not informed that it is a seizure and that it's a neurological condition.
Now, recognizing there's a wide variety of types of seizures you can have, can you give us a quick cookbook for our audience of what one should do if someone they're with is having a seizure? And you might explore the different types of seizures briefly, but I would like our audience to leave here feeling that they're going to go to your website and learn more. You're going to give them some resources, but you're going to give them some easy cookbook things to remember.
I'll love to start off. That's part of my
you.
job, right? First thing, believe it or not, is staying calm. It's staying calm. Just breathe in, breathe out, and then helping the person. One of the things we always recommend is putting the person to the side, cushion their head, because like we mentioned before, it has to do with a neurological disorder. So we don't want that person to continue hitting their head, especially if they're convulsing. So putting something kind of like a pillow or a jacket, something soft on their head will help out. Like she mentioned before, not putting anything on their mouth. They might get their tongue, a cut, or they might start bleeding, right? But that's the reason why we're putting them on their side. So their saliva and blood, anything that's liquid, just goes through the side, and then we'll choke on that. Making sure there's no sharp objects like tables, chairs, anything that could kind of continue hurting the person, away from that. Okay, so we keep the person away from those things. We try to move things that might hurt them. And one important detail is also knowing the time. So try to document as much as you can at what time it started, how long that it took for that seizure to end. If you see it pass longer than 5 minutes, please call 911. But we want to let people know that sometimes this is normal for that person, and not all the times do we have to call 911. We want to inform that, but at the end of the day, we just want that person to be safe. So whatever you feel in your heart to do, please do. But it's that simple, because we want to make sure that everyone understand that person goes through this probably every day. It's normal for them. It may not be normal for you, but it's normal for them. So we want to be there after the seizure happens. We want to make sure that they're okay, that they're kind of back to earth. I don't know if you would like to add anything else.
Back to earth. And no, that's just that they're responsive. And one thing I would add is to check if they have any medical ID, just because you can see what if they're diabetic, that goes into some other immediate 911 situations. And if it says they have epilepsy or they have a seizure disorder, then not to call 911 immediately, because they've experienced this before.
Mm-hmm. And just staying there for the person is just very important, because we don't want them to feel like they're a burden or a bother, because they're not. This is something we have to live with, and this is one of the reasons why we're bringing this awareness, these free trainings, this free information. So again, it could happen to anyone at any given time.
And they should get in touch with Epilepsy Alliance Florida and get as much education as possible.
Yes, please.
All for free.
Free. It's free, fun. We bring goodies, we make it as fun, and there's different types of trainings. We cater to the audience. So if it's for our school personnel, we have a special training for that. If it's for police officers, we have a special. If it's for kids, I come all colorful, and I kind of involve the DJing and the music, so I make it fun for the kids and the students. So we cater to our audience. So it's not gonna be a boring presentation. People love it, and you get certified. By the way, at the end of the day, you get a legit certification saying that you are certified to help out and response to any seizures.
Oh,
yeah, it's free. So
You can add it to your resume.
I did.
That's good. We're going to tell our interns.
Please,
Different
yes.
brains, yeah. Is there anything you'd like to cover that we haven't covered on this?
I would say I would just want to go into the 911 thing a little bit. Because that's kind of another misconception about epilepsy and just seizures in general. If it's a first-time seizure for the person, then you absolutely call 911 immediately. Yes. If it's clusters, which basically is a seizure after another seizure, and they're not stopping, then that's a 911 situation.
Water.
If it's in water, it's always an emergency. If the person's diabetic or pregnant, it's always an emergency. And I believe, if the seizure lasts longer than 5 minutes,
Yeah.
an emergency. But most of the time, a seizure is really not an emergency. Only in those scenarios.
It is very interesting, because again, everyone, right, will say, "Oh snap, let's just call 911," right? But again, part of that is the education we give, the presentation that we give to the community for them to know when to do it, and it's an amazing thing to learn. It's like you said, it's something you can add to your resume, both emotionally, mentally, and educationally, right? There's something that it's kind of like a good backup to have, so kind of like a hero, you know what to do. So yeah.
And just like people have to do CPR trainings for a job or for personal reasons, maybe you can add a seizure first aid training too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more common than we think. And everybody should be educated in what to do and more importantly, what not to do. I'm going to ask one final question. Ladies first. What do you wish society understood about epilepsy?
If that question was directed to individuals specifically with epilepsy, I would tell them they are not alone, no matter how alone you feel. Because like we said earlier, the stigma that nobody talks about it, if nobody talks about it, nobody can connect with somebody that actually has it. What I wish society in general knew about epilepsy, I would say that there's more to epilepsy than just seizures.
Luis?
Well, my message is that we're better together, and knowing more, and us coming together and learning the education and every part and hearing testimonies, and because there could be knowledge that we learn, but when you hear it from someone like Anna that knows what it is, that's living with it, it kind of opens your eyes that, you know what, I got to do my part. So I will tell society, let's do our part. It is a problem, but you could become that solution, and you could become that answer. You could become that light, and put a light on epilepsy and bring awareness. And it's not, it's something that is just available to you. So come and get it. Come and learn. We need you. We need you. We need to do this together, and not to ignore it. That's just one of the things that I just feel that a society has kind of been like, okay, well, this is just a little group. That's it. It's not just a little group. Like I mentioned before, it affects everyone around that person that has epilepsy. So it affects the family. It affects their well-being, their finances, their mental health. It affects every area of their life. So we want you to go ahead and get educated, be part of our team, and get to know us.
Well said. Luis Martinez, Ana Diaz, the Epilepsy Alliance Florida, thank you both so much, and we hope you won't be a stranger to all of us at Different Brains. Thank you for all the good work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Jinx.
Exploring Different Brains is a production of Different Brains. Visit us at differentbrains.org.